Hey, it's Vanessa, and today I'm going to tell you a story about synchronicity and intuition. If you've tuned into my channel for any length of time, you've probably heard it before, but I always like to ad-lib and throw in new aspects and flavors of the story, and this is one that's especially relevant to the date that is actually happening tomorrow. So before I jump in, I want to share with you what I am seeing. So let me pan around. It's a rush hour right now. You can see all the bikes. Get the nature fix, the daily nature fix to rewild your human. You can join me in that. So anyway, here's the story. Back in the end of 2015, I heard a date in my head. The date was April 17th, 2017. And I thought, that's interesting. So obviously, because it's so specific, I paid attention. And our intuition is always talking with us. When you learn how to navigate your life energetically, you will notice that your intuition will become louder, and more diverse in terms of how it gets your attention. So if you have the tendency to hear, maybe you'll start to see things. If you have the tendency to see things, maybe you'll start to feel things, right? So intuition exists not in one space in our body, it exists in every single cell of our body. And so as we use it to navigate the energy of this world, it becomes a very creative, shall we say. So anyway, this date, I mark it down, and I have this very strong sense that it means it's the date that we move to Europe. We had not talked about moving to Europe. It was not on the agenda. It was not even a conversation at all. So I say to my husband at the time, again, this is December 2015, I said, hey, I heard a date in my head, and I just had this very strong sense that we were to move to Europe on that date. And I did not tell him what the date was. I just started off the conversation like that. We've been together for quite some time, so this is not a new way for me to have a conversation with him. And he said, that's so weird, because last week I had a date in my head and I thought the same thing. And I was like, what was your date? And he said, April 17th, 2017. I was like, what? That's my date. And so we kind of look at each other and we say, well, what do we do about this? And then he said, figure out a way to move to Europe. And so the story began, and we ended up selling everything and showing up to Europe with 9 suitcases, our 5-year-old kiddo, our 13-year-old cat, and no jobs and no place to live. Now, a lot of people said this was brave and courageous. Some people thought it was stupid. Everybody's always got an opinion, and it's your life, so you get to choose. For us, it just felt right, like the right thing to do. And that is the thing, when you start to live intuitively, you just go by the compass of what feels right. And even when things could trigger you or could bring up some stuff, or you're thinking, how in the world am I going to pull this off, or this doesn't make any logical sense, you will still have a feeling that it feels right if it's an intuitive decision. So anyway, we arrive here March 29th, 2017. I was a little bummed out because I didn't have my full circle moment, except I did. What had happened is, when we came here, again, we did not have a place to stay yet. Everybody was talking their talk about how hard it's going to be to find a place to live without any job contracts, which is usually how people end up getting here. However, my husband had been quite vocal online and had shared our story and our journey of getting over here. And so we had a number of people looking out for us. And there was a woman that reached out to us and said, hey, do you need a place? I think I have one for you. So we went to go look at it. It hit 90% of what was on our list. And it was including being fully furnished, pet friendly, in a super family friendly neighborhood, in our budget. I mean, everything. Only thing, we did not have job contracts. And she said, I hope my husband doesn't, get upset at me for this. She said, but I just have an intuitive feeling that you are supposed to live here. So, she said, are you interested? And we said, yes. With that, we got the keys and we moved in on April 17th, 2017. And there are many other aspects to the story, and I'll share a couple. During this journey where my husband had, was sharing our story, he said, people might recognize us when we arrive. And I thought, okay, your ego is getting a little out of control here. That I'm like, is it a really small town? Because we had never been here before. And he said, no, I've just been very active, and it's not super small. I mean, there's I don't know, maybe close to 400,000 in this town. So it's, again, not very small. And we have previously lived in a town that had 3,000, a town that had 13,000. That was small. So I was out at a bus stop one day with my son, and there was somebody looking at me, another mom with her own kid. She looks at me with this kind of quizzical look, and then she looks down at her phone and she does some, tapping and scrolling on the phone. And then she looks at me again and she said, "Are you the Smith family?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Welcome to Utrecht." And then she just became very gracious and very nice and chatty with me. And we actually got recognized in a number of different places, at the grocery store, at the library, at different events. And it was, he was right. So I share this with you because sometimes when we hear these synchronicity type of stories, we think, oh wow, like if only that would happen to me, or I had this happen that one time. I'm sharing this with you because this is the way. This is the new earth paradigm that I talk about on this channel. We are meant to move through life intuitively. We incarnated with a soul group that are working on the same umbrella themes, and we recognize each other. So even if my husband hadn't necessarily, talked about us online, there would be an energetic recognition when we run into people. That feeling when you have a deja vu, or you recognize someone, or you're like, oh man, I really know that person. That's going to get louder. The intuitive nudges and the specificity is going to happen more frequently. This is all by design. This is how the energy is shifting. We're meant to navigate this world energetically. And what's been happening is that we are, many people say the awakening journey is like getting to know your spiritual self and your soul self. And that there's absolute truth to that. But what's also part of the awakening journey is that we realize the degree to which we've been programmed that life should operate in a certain way. So a lot of people call those limiting beliefs, or I call it your personal matrix. There's many different factors that influence what makes that matrix up. It's not about, all of a sudden you have no beliefs anymore, you have no matrix. It's about intentionally cultivating and creating your life and your matrix based on your unique design, based on your intuitive nudges, based on who you synchronistically connect with, based on reading the energy. This is the new way. This is how the new paradigm gets birthed. There's new opportunities that are waiting for you, new connections that are at the ready when you listen and you honor your intuition, when you give yourself permission to live intuitively, to follow the nudges. And, God works out the how. That you will find that if you allow yourself to remain open to the how, and you simply do your job of following the nudges, like my husband got the nudge to be more vocal and to share certain aspects of our journey. That was what led to our house. That was what led to that initial community. So we still take action, right? The big piles of money that we might want, or, the love of the soulmate or the lover of our lives, it might not necessarily come knocking at your door, right? You actually still need to be out in the world, but you need to be, well, you don't need to do anything. But here's what I would encourage, to do it from a really open, aligned to your design, aligned to your intuition perspective, because you'll see the world and yourself differently. You'll see what's actually available to you. And right now we're in this time, this incredible bridge time between worlds, in the 2020 to 2030 decade that we're in, where we have a foot in both worlds, right? We have a foot in the old world, the old ways, the assumptions and the limitation beliefs and the fears and the projections and the, maybe dysfunctional relationship dynamics, these sort of aspects of our reality that aren't necessarily representative of the new way. They aren't necessarily, life-giving or vitality enriching, right? And then we've got our foot in the other world, the new world that operates on this. It's not, it feels very magical when it happens, but it's actually one of the most pragmatic, practical ways to live your life, is to do, to do your daily doings, right? Via that intuitive nudge, via reading the energy, right? Sometimes when we're in our ego, we really want to push at stuff, or we really wait for somebody else to give us permission to live our lives in a certain way, or we wait until it's the right opportunity. I have one more story to tell you, and then I will cut out for now and move on with the rest of my day. I have a journey ahead of me today. I'm going to go visit a healer, a shaman, incredible person that has been so very helpful for my life. And it's about a 2-hour journey to get there. So, and before you make any assumptions, let me just tell you, most of my life is actually very, not rote, but I'm sharing all of the magical bits, and so it might sound that every moment feels like the magical unicorn moment, and that is not, I wake up and I eat and I work on my business, and I usually keep it in a 9-to-5 kind of way, because that's a rhythm that works for me. So anyway, it's always both, but you can bring a sense of magic to the more mundane moments, and that is also the task at hand for the new paradigm, right? Okay, so the other story that I wanted to share with you is I want to say it was quite a while ago. It was a long time ago, maybe even 20 years ago, but it always stood out to me. This is a story about money. So if you ever feel challenged by money, listen to this. So I went to this money workshop. It was like a change your belief money workshop. It was one of those, have you heard of T. Harv Eker? Wrote The Millionaire Mind. I went to this workshop when it first came out, which I want to say was like 2005 or something like that. And at the time, that was like, I want to say pre the deep healing that I needed around money. And so I was open, but not really open. I was still really stuck and attached to my beliefs around money. And I go to this, and the presenter is talking on stage, and it was one of those very typical come to our weekend for free, but then I'm going to pitch you all of my programs at the end of it. And so one of the programs they were pitching was a coaching program, and I was convinced this coaching program, that would be the thing that would change my life, which is like, there are very powerful programs out there. I run a lot of programs myself that I know can be life-changing, but ultimately it's up to you to do the work. You don't need a program or a coach to help you do the inner work, but it can be highly helpful. And nothing happens alone or in a vacuum. Like, we are always connected to everything, and it's always helping us on our healing journey and whatever it is that we want to manifest. So this whole I did it on my own is like not really actually technically true. Anyway, I go up to the stage because, again, I'm convinced this coaching program is where it's at for me. It's going to turn my life around, because he was a good seller. He was a great salesperson. I'm standing in line, and then I finally talk with him, and I give him my laundry list of excuses and stories as to why I can't afford the program. And I at that point, I technically could not. I had $679 in my account at that time, and the program cost $1,500, and my rent cost $675, and I had no credit card, so I couldn't do it. Like, I really couldn't do it, but I still felt compelled to go talk with him. So I go up there and I explain this to him, and he said, I want you to do an experiment. I want you to not, every time you catch yourself telling a story around why you can't have something or why it's not possible for you, stop yourself from telling the story. And I was thinking, what good is that going to do? But he said, are you up for that? And I said, yeah. And then I started giving this kind of like, yeah, but meh. And then he said, how about you start now with just not talking? I got like totally called out. He's just don't talk. I was like, okay. He's like, can you do it for until tomorrow morning? Because it was a weekend workshop. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to give it a try. So after that, I leave, and I immediately call my husband, and I start to explain the situation and go on about like, how is it going to be possible? And this is the amount of money that I have, and blah. But every single time I tried to leave the message, it cut me off. The phone would hang up on me. The phone was saying, please stop talking. And this happened 3 times. I tried it 3 times, and I was like, okay, I'm going to take this as a universal nod to STFU to just shut up. And so I did, and I just kind of kept quiet for the rest of the day and the night. And then the next morning, we got there back to the workshop, and I was partnered up with somebody that was sitting next to me, and we were talking about this program, and I was talking to her about my vision and how I thought this program fit into it and what I wanted to create in the world. And that's always been my light at the end of the tunnel for everything, is the vision, how the vision leads me out of whatever dark place I'm in. It's been, really helped me to anchor my own light in some very, very challenging circumstances multiple times. So I'm sure I can be very magnetic when I talk about visions, because it's just, it comes naturally to me to talk about visions. Anyway, I'm sharing this with her, and then she hands me the application form, and she said, will you fill it out? And I'm like, yeah, but why? Like, I can't do it. She's like, just feel how it feels to fill it out and what it would be like to receive, like you could do it. And I was like, kind of rolling my eyes at the time, because I hadn't yet I hadn't yet dedicated myself to what was actually possible. I was too much in the yeah, but, and also, pair that with like really low self-worth at that time. It's not a great combination. It's a combination for a lot of challenging circumstances to continue, I'll tell you that. So I just, she was just so sweet and so earnest, and I really liked her a lot. And I filled out the application, and then she said, stand up. So I stood up, and she was just another participant in the group. She wasn't a teacher or anything, just a partner for an exercise. She grabs my hand and she says, follow me. So we walk back to the table where you sign up. And she looks at me and she says, I would like to pay for half of this. I was like, what? Half of it at the time was $1,500. And they had payment plans. And she said, that means you would have to commit to paying the other half. They have payment plans. There's options that you can work with. Are you willing to commit to that? And she had such presence and such groundedness and such faith in my ability to commit that it really helped me at that moment to be able to say yes to that. But this stranger just paid $1,500, and I signed up for the program. And did it change my life? No. Yes and no, right? It wasn't that, epic. All of a sudden, everything is completely different than it was before. But it did make a huge difference. It did make a huge difference. And more than anything, it was that experience of having the experience with the presenter, and having the experience of her, a stranger, pay $1,500 for me to join this. And so I've had so many seed moments like that like, I love to share the story of it, and I also cannot wait to be in a position where I am also able to seed others in that way financially. I have a big dream around that, a big vision around that. Anyway, that is my story. Those are the stories I'm telling you today. So let your vision be a guiding light for you. Open yourself up and give yourself permission to see possibilities where you thought there were none. And follow those intuitive nudges. You never know, you may end up living in Europe, which we have for the past 7 years, and we're about to make another country jump in the next couple of months, which that's a whole other story that I'll save for another day. But with that, just thank you so much for tuning in. Please do like, comment, subscribe, click to get notifications, share with your friends, all that good social media stuff that gets us out to more people. And I'll be back again soon with another conversation on energy. See you.